Many of you asked for a practical way to apply my last post to your life. In fact, after that post about the woman with the man petting her dog, I got this question. How do you know when it's fear or discernment? And that's actually a great question because not every uncomfortable feeling is a warning sign. But when it is a warning sign, you do well to listen. So today I'm going to give you 3 questions that you can ask yourself to help you tell the difference. Question number 1. Is this a pattern or a one-time event? Our brains are still the best predictive AI on the planet. They're constantly looking for patterns and information in order to draw conclusions quickly. But sometimes our brain can mistake a single moment for a pattern. So when a particular situation or relationship feels off, like the man petting the woman's dog and then following her to the restaurant, ask yourself, do I usually react in similar situations this way? Or is there something unique about this situation? If every person who pets your dog makes you uncomfortable, there may be a deeper fear worth exploring. But if one specific interaction feels different than all the others, your brain may have been noticing something important. Number 2, what is the worst realistic outcome? Not the worst possible outcome, the worst realistic outcome. Sometimes our brains jump straight to catastrophe. Other times, they correctly identify risk. For example, a child petting your dog may leave you with the risk of having your dog's fur covered in peanut butter and jelly, but a stranger following you from one location to the other presents a very different level of concern. Discernment grows when we accurately assess the risk instead of minimizing it or exaggerating it. Question number 3. What is this feeling asking me to do? Fear usually demands immediate reaction. Wisdom invites thoughtful response. Before acting, ask yourself this. Is this feeling asking me to protect myself or to gather more information? To set a boundary or to pay closer attention? Notice how the girl in the story responded. Remember, at first she tried to dismiss her spidey sense. Remember, she was saying, surely this is just a coincidence. He's not pointing the camera at me. He's likely just taking a selfie. But then she decided to gather more intel, and she asked the waitress if she had noticed anything off. The waitress casually walked behind the man and confirmed the woman's suspicions. Now the woman had real data that she could process, and she was able to exit that situation thanks to the waitress and the manager of the restaurant letting her exit out the back. Had she continued to dismiss her feelings, the outcome could have been very different. But escalating things unnecessarily could have backfired too. Instead, she didn't panic, she didn't dismiss, she questioned, she evaluated, she gathered data, and then she acted. Remember, the goal isn't to become less emotional. The goal is to become more curious, to investigate your feelings. Don't let them call the shots, but don't dismiss them either. And that's how wisdom and discernment grow. Next time, we'll examine how this kind of discernment might play out in a new or existing relationship. This post might be a bit long, but I didn't want to leave any part of it out, so buckle up. In my 2 recent videos, we talked about how to tell the difference between fear and discernment in particular moments. But today I want to talk about how to respond when something feels off in a relationship especially if it's in the early stages. So here's my advice. Like before, don't ignore the feeling and don't blindly trust it either. Investigate it, but not by asking, do I like this person? Instead, ask, do I see the qualities that make healthy relationships possible in this person? So here are the questions I need you to ask yourself. 1, is there mutual respect? Do they value you? Do they value your time, your opinions, your feelings? When you've established a boundary, what have you consistently observed? Do they honor it or regularly test it? Now, be honest with yourself when asking these questions about what you're seeing, because if they don't respect you while they're trying to win your heart, they're not likely going to start once they finally have your heart. So question number 2, do they demonstrate humility? And I don't mean do they shy away from praise. I mean, can they admit when they're wrong? Can they receive feedback? Can they apologize without becoming defensive or qualifying their apology? Can they celebrate your wins, or do they feel threatened by them? That kind of humility is essential for personal growth, and healthy relationships require both parties to have a growth mindset. Number 3, are they self-aware? In other words, are they quick to point out everyone else's faults, but slow to acknowledge their own? Or do they regularly ask, what could I have done differently? Or how could I have shown up differently? Number 4, do they take responsibility for themselves? Or do they expect other people to manage their emotions, to make them happy, to carry the weight of their disappointments? Do they take responsibility for their own growth, their own mistakes, their own happiness? One of the biggest mistakes I've seen people make over the last 30 years is assuming that small character issues will somehow become smaller on their own. They rarely do. The things you overlook in the early stages of a relationship are usually the things you'll end up living with long term. So when something feels off, don't ignore it. Instead, ask questions. Look for patterns. But remember, discernment isn't about assuming the worst in people, and it isn't about trying to change them. It's about paying attention carefully enough to recognize what's actually true rather than what you want to be true. In my last video, I shared with you 4 questions that you could use to evaluate whether a relationship has the ingredients necessary to become healthy. Today, I want to flip the script and look in the mirror, because healthy relationships aren't built by finding the perfect person. They're built by becoming the kind of person that you are looking for. Think about those 4 questions that we talked about in the last post. Do you consistently show respect? Not just when it's easy, but when you're frustrated. Do you demonstrate humility? In other words, can you admit when you're wrong? Can you receive feedback without becoming defensive? Can you celebrate someone else's win without feeling threatened? Number 3, remember, are you self-aware? So do you regularly ask yourself, what could I have done differently? Do you take responsibility for yourself? Or do you expect someone else to carry the weight of your happiness, of your emotions, of your disappointments? The healthiest relationships aren't made up of perfect people. They're made up of 2 people who are committed to growing. Because here's the truth. The one relationship you will definitely have to live with long term is the relationship with yourself. So before we spend too much energy evaluating someone else's character, we should invest some time developing our own. Because chemistry may start a relationship, but character determines whether it lasts. And character isn't something you find, it's something you build.